2nd, 2019 school board meeting. I'd like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
She totally did.
Do we have any revisions to the agenda?
We do not.
The summary of non-public actions from September 18, 2019. Mr. Burke made a motion to approve the non-public minutes of September 4, 2019. Mr. Myers second. Motion carried 5-0. And we have no presentation recognitions.
That's not.
All right. So with us this evening, we have some first graders from GMS that
Kindergarten. They're
No,
first graders
they're
now.
first graders.
Oh, they're first graders too? Oh,
No,
okay.
they graduated.
First.
They were the kindergartners.
I got you. Thank you. Okay.
Kindergarten.
Stand
I've already
corrected.
made that mistake.
They were
Sorry,
the
stand
first
corrected.
class of full-day kindergarten.
Gotcha.
So, Mr. Thompson, I'll leave it to you. But I will mention that when the little young folks come up, all they have to do is just state their name. All right.
Okay.
All
Thank
I
you.
have to do
I'm
is
working
just-
with a
I'm
little
sorry.
technology here.
And you just state your first name, that's all, just so we know
Yes.
who we're talking
Sorry for the pause.
to. Okay. Maybe one of the first graders could help you.
Okay. So yes, when we were asked to have a presentation that involved students and was about a school program, I thought what a great place to begin. Last year was the first year of our full-day kindergarten ever at Griffin Memorial School. And so I asked the kindergarten teachers to participate in a couple of ways. One was to come up with a series of questions that would be designed to kind of help students reflect on their experience and what it meant to them. And secondly, to participate by interviewing the students. Obviously, we gained parent permission. I would like to thank and acknowledge our students. So there were 8 altogether who participated, and 6 of them, I believe, are here tonight, unless someone came in while I was at my back to the audience. But I'm going to ask them to stand so we can acknowledge them before we look at the movie that they helped create. And in addition, we'll invite them up, and I've invited their parents to be available, or asked if they would be, to answer any questions about the impact on parents of a full-day kindergarten program. So I'm going to ask our students to stand up before we look at it. So first of all, Abigail, Hannah, Cameron, Ben, Evelyn, and Kylie. Did anyone else come in who I missed? Let's hear it for those two. The other 2 students were Cohen and, I know this, Cadence, I believe. So without further ado, I'm going to share the movie that they helped participate in. It's 16 minutes long, and I apologize for the sound quality at home. I came in and did a tech rehearsal, actually, to see how this would work out. The sound is okay on my computer, but it didn't translate well to the TV. So I'll make it so it displays on the TV. But the sound is going to come through these microphones, these speakers rather. And I think that's also the best way for people at home to hear it, is through these speakers. So hopefully that will work. Okay, without further ado. Oops, I think I need to turn my sound back on.
It's one of my favorite sounds.
Great. So I'm going to ask you some questions about what you learned from kindergarten last year. The first question I have for you is, what was your favorite job then? Of course, calendar. Calendar. What did you like about calendar? I forget what we did in calendar. You forget what we did in calendar. Did you like to do the counting part or use the pointer hand? Counting part. The counting part. Reading, class, and pointing. Abby, what was your favorite job? Line leader. Line leader. How come you like to be line leader? Probably because she gets to be the first one. Well, let's see what she says. Is Ben right? Is it because you get to be the first one in line? Do you remember that's how I used to take attendance, right? So you would always say, good morning, this is how to make it. So can you say, good morning, I'm? Good morning, I'm Hannah. Good morning, I'm Tina. Okay, so we have a list of questions about kindergarten and what you remember about kindergarten. What is something you miss about kindergarten? Our teacher. Oh. I like teachers. And now you're in first grade. What about your favorite job? What was your calendar. What was your favorite job? Calendar. Calendar. What was your favorite job? Line leader, because after calendar was so popular, then someone picked line leader because they never got it before, and then another person picked it and they never got it before, and then a lot of people had never got it before, so they wanted to do it. Now remember our jobs that we had in class? Mm-hmm. What was your favorite job? Do you remember? Did you have a favorite job? Yeah, I think it was. What did you have to do? Maybe I'll help you that way. What did you have to do for the job? That's what I remember. The flag holder. Did you have a favorite? Holding the door. Oh, the door holder. Those are both really important jobs. Actually, no, my favorite was line leader. Oh, you like being line leader too. That's right. I like that. Hi, Mrs. Gould. I'm Cameron. I'm Evelyn. These are my previous kindergarten students, so I'm going to ask them some questions about what kindergarten is like. So the first one we just talked about, what is your favorite job that we had in kindergarten, Cameron? Jobs. Okay, do you remember which one in particular that you liked? Washing tables. Washing tables. Good. And you? I like being the star of the day. And what's the star of the day? They could ring the bell, mm-hmm. and they could read the morning message. Yeah. They could also pick names for the calendar over there. And they could also do the words, popcorn words, and the letter sounds over there. They were like the second teacher with it.
Yeah.
We got to be lying in there, absolutely.
Okay. Let's see. What is something that you learned in kindergarten? We'll start with Abby this time. What's something you learned in kindergarten?
Math.
You learned math. What about math did you learn? Counting or addition?
Addition.
You liked addition. Ben, what did you like learning about in kindergarten?
Counting.
Counting. Anything else?
Well, mostly addition.
You liked the addition. All right.
What was something that you learned in kindergarten?
How to write my name better.
Yeah, absolutely.
How to spell words.
What was something that you learned in kindergarten?
Maybe.
Waving?
Friends, so first I want to find out, how is first grade going? Good. Good? All right, so what are some things that we did in kindergarten that's helping you in first grade?
This. A, B, C, D. Because I really forget.
Oh, because you were getting confused with
Yeah.
which way is B and
Yeah.
which way is D?
Yeah.
How about you, Cohen?
I don't even remember that.
Are there, what about things in kindergarten that you learned that's helping you in first grade?
How to hold the pencil.
How to hold the pencil. That was hard in the beginning, wasn't it? And then we mastered it by the end. Right.
How about the things that you learned in kindergarten? Did you learn how to be a good friend?
Yeah, we probably learned that. Because
What-
we were actually being mean.
What are some things that make a good friend?
I remember when we were being mean because she was looking at snorkel and I said, "Stop doing that," and she was like, "I'm not doing anything to you." And then
So let's think about this. How can you be good friends to each other? What makes a good friend?
be a good
Wait,
sport.
take turns. Be a good sport.
Be nice,
Being nice. How about being a good listener?
being a
Taking
friend,
turns.
filling someone's bucket
Fill in someone's bucket. How can you do that?
by saying nice words to them
I like
instead
that.
of saying mean. Because we learned that in first grade in my class. My classrooms are almost filled with their pom-poms.
That's awesome.
I don't have.
No. So some.
I have caught you carings and class crash.
Was there anything that we learned in kindergarten that at first was hard, but then as we kept trying, we got really good at it? Do you remember?
Math.
Math. What kind of thing did you have a hard time with in math?
Minus.
Oh, the subtraction was kind of hard.
That was really like.
Because you have to remember to go backwards.
Yeah.
And now are you a pro at it? Oh, I love it. How about you? What is something that was hard at first?
I know how to do times and divided, so it seemed to do it, so it was a little hard to write.
So you got to do a little bit of that because you were ready to do it. Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
What's your favorite thing you played? Anytime during kindergarten? Like a center that you really like? Or it could be, did you like playing? What did you like about playing on the playground?
I like art.
You like art? Okay.
I like making cars outside.
What's that?
I like making cars outside, and I like art as well because we're in her classroom now and we have a science and stuff.
Oh, okay.
I get a paper chair.
How about Go Noodle? Did you like what?
Yes.
What was your favorite thing to play with last year? I see you eyeing the math bucket. Do you like the math buckets, Ben?
I don't know which one.
Do you have a favorite math bucket? Is it not over there anymore? I did change them up. There's some good stuff in there though.
The blocks.
The blocks. You build with the little blocks.
Because we got this, me and Michael got it to make a pyramid.
You guys made some really tall
I wish you
pyramids.
guys had like a triangle one so we can make like a real pyramid.
That would look cool if we had some triangle blocks. I mean, what do you think? What was your favorite toy or your favorite thing to play with last year? The little puppy dogs.
probably trying to find the matches.
What did you like to do with the little puppy dogs? Just play with them.
Okay, my friends, so now, we used to do Go Noodles sometimes in our classroom. What was your favorite Go Noodle, Cohen?
It was like the one when we were wanting, like when the moose was wanting to give the soup to grandma.
Oh, and we had to like duck, and then we had to jump.
And,
Oh, that was a
yeah.
fun one. Was that what your favorite too? Did you have any others that you really liked?
I liked all like purple stew too.
Oh, the purple shoe with it's like at camp. Is that the one with oh yeah, I like that one
He put
also.
like purple glitter, purple banana.
Oh, I remember that. That was fun.
So what are some things that maybe, if you look around the room, that you really are like, oh, that was so much fun in kindergarten?
Cupcakes were so much fun.
Cupcakes for snacks. What else?
Now, what was your favorite thing to play in kindergarten? I know recess is fun, but like think about something that we played in the room, maybe during free play or a game that we used to play a lot. You think of something? Telephone. That was a really good one. That was hard for us.
I love playing in the kitchen area upstairs.
Yeah. Good. Does anybody remember a story that they read that they really enjoyed?
I remember the story that I brought in.
What was that one?
Silly.
Ooh, did you bring that in for show and share or just for some? Do you remember that?
I think it was like for sure.
That's good. That was a good one.
I think my octopus book that was really, it was like a real good adventure. It was really cool.
And sometimes you read to us too. Remember that? That was a really good time.
Favorite field trip?
Pumpkin. Probably pumpkin picking. Because I've never been on a bus, but now I take the bus to school.
Oh, so that could be one of your favorite things about coming to kindergarten is riding the bus, huh? You ride it now as a first grader?
Now, what about, do you remember any of our field trips that we did? Some of them we went away for, and some of them we had inside our classroom. What was your favorite?
The one when we got pumpkin. Me too.
We went to the pumpkin patch.
On a bus together. That was like
Yes, and then we got to have hot chocolate.
Oh yes, I forgot about that.
Oh, I remember that. That was really fun. And then when we came back, what did we do to the pumpkin?
Drawn it.
I think with the big one. Remember we had a big class one?
Oh yeah.
What did we do? Do you remember?
Yeah, we carved it.
And then what?
We started.
Didn't we have to take all the goopy seeds out and count them?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that? We're probably going to do that again this year.
So can you tell me again, what you liked about your favorite field trip? Can you think of anything else that we did in school?
Going to the fire room.
What did you do in Mrs. Sweetzer's room?
We did this gummy bear chart, how many gummy bears that you had. So I had 5 red ones, 2 yellows, 3 oranges, and 1 white.
That's when we did the STEM day, right? And we went from each room and did a different activity. It was like a science, math activity. Mm-hmm. So you did the stacking of the gummy bears. What else did you do?
We had things like, do you remember?
The tea. The tea day.
Oh, our tea, when we did tea
floats.
centers?
Yeah.
Oh, the tea centers, and that one was F for floats.
Yeah.
So we had all our F centers.
Float. My favorite food one was what we did those s'mores.
Oh, that was our S centers.
And F centers.
I love it. Now, anything special that we did on a special day? I know we had a bunch of, like, we had Hundreds Day, we had Read Across America, we had.
I like the Hundreds Day.
What did we do during Hundreds Day that you really enjoyed? And make sure this is down. What did we?
And my mom coming.
That's right, she came to help out. Your mom was a good helper. What did we do on Hundreds Day?
So we asked kindergarten students and their parents here if there are other things that come to mind that people would like to ask to find out more about the experience and what it meant for both students and parents. So I think what I'd do is ask the students to come up with a parent if that would be more comfortable. And if there are things that they'd like to say or you'd like to ask, they're available to do that. All right. So students, would you like to come up with a mom or dad or somebody?
Great job, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know what? I do afternoon kindergarten in another district, and the answers to the questions made me think that your kindergarten teachers were pretty awesome, and that you guys had a lot of fun things. And I'm gonna steal some of those ideas and use them with my kindergartners. How's first grade going?
Good.
Yeah, is it the same or different from kindergarten?
It's a little harder.
Is it a little harder? Yeah.
Do you feel like you were prepared to go into first grade?
Mm-hmm.
We learned a lot.
Yeah.
You did learn a lot in kindergarten, I can tell.
I loved your responses, and I didn't get to say all that, but what I saw in there is how much you learned over the course of that year, both how to get along, things about math and reading and writing. It was great, and we don't know those things when we start school, so I thought that was awesome.
I know that in first grade, you need to know some things like how to read your name so you can find your hook to hang up your backpack, and how to go and sit on the rug and get a book to read, or how to find your desk and get out your supplies. Did kindergarten teach you all those things so that you would be ready for doing that in first grade?
We didn't have desks, we had tables.
You had tables, you're right. So do you have desks now in first? Some of you have desks, some of you have tables, right?
We had dry erase tables.
I know, they're so cool. Right? But you all know where to find everything that you need,
Yeah.
right? Good. And you know how to use the cafeteria
Yeah.
and how to go to the bathroom.
And that's the bathrooms not in our classroom this year.
Right,
So we
right,
have to go all the way down to the girls and boys bathrooms from the hallway.
right, right. And you know the rules and like how to
Yeah.
behave and do your job in there. So I think that sounds good.
Is it more fun being inside the big building, or did you like it in the kindergarten building?
I kind of liked it better in the kindergarten building because it had air conditioning.
Smart girl. Yeah, good answer.
What surprised you about kindergarten? Anything?
No.
Was it a long day for you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it was full day and then the other year was half day.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So go
Okay.
ahead.
I was gonna ask if you got tired during kindergarten? No?
Yeah, I got pretty tired.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot of work thinking, right?
Yeah,
Following rules.
because we
Playing.
did some math and then you had to think of the numbers in your brain and then you had to write them down.
That's hard work. That's rough.
If you could change anything about kindergarten, what would you change?
I would choose the math.
You change math. That's what my kid would say.
So if I was a kindergartner now, I know you probably see the kindergartner sometimes, like when you're going to the bus at the beginning and the end of the day. If I was a kindergartner now, what would you what kind of advice would you give me?
To walk.
Walk in the halls? Good advice.
Running.
To be quiet in the hallway.
Uh-huh.
To learn how to read.
So
to learn how to be quiet in the library.
Uh-huh.
Do any of you want to be kindergarten teachers?
No.
Oh, you do?
Oh,
Double hand.
Well, maybe after this year, you'll also want to be first grade teacher.
Right.
I think. Maybe.
I'm gonna be both.
Both? Great job, you guys.
Yeah, you guys did
Very
a
impressed.
fantastic job.
I know.
Thank you for coming and talking to us.
too.
Well, thank you.
Great job.
Are you all going home now to have some ice cream?
Yeah, Lick's is still open, right?
They didn't hear home.
They heard ice
You have it in
cream.
your pocket. If I may, I think I mentioned it at the last board meeting, just in walking through the first grade classrooms early in September. First grade teachers couldn't emphasize enough how quickly they could get into routines because they had been established already. You know, Sandy Doucette, who's been teaching for a long time, just talked about even snack time. Students know how to have snacks. There's not spills at snacks. There are all sorts of things that just make it so much more efficient. And those are the soft skills that I think Scott emphasized in the presentation that we take for granted, because when you're not spending time on that, you're better able to get down to even some of the more academic components. So in the long haul, this really is a great program, and I appreciate that Principal Thompson brought this forward for the board to look at. And I love, by the way, having parents and students here. I mean, this is really what it's all about, and it's easy for the board to get disconnected from that reality. So I get the pleasure of going in and seeing it in action, and I appreciate that you brought it to us. So thank you for doing that, Scott.
So Scott, I'm curious, because we don't have any of the kindergarten teachers here, right?
We had what?
You don't have any kindergarten teachers here with you tonight?
No,
Well, the reason I'm asking, I'm just curious, like, especially like Mrs. Sweetser and
yeah.
what's his last name? Mrs. Adamakis,
Yes, yeah.
because they've been there for a long time. I'm just curious, like, what they saw from beginning of the year to the end of the year and the transition from
Yeah.
going part-time, full-time.
So I think that last year was marked by large class sizes. So they definitely saw that. You know, if you remember, we had classes of 22 and 23. So it was a little overwhelming last year. But I think that they did see, like I gave some very quick statistics on
Yeah.
improved reading skills and those kinds of things. And so while all of our incoming first graders, we don't expect to be reading, what was really clear is that they have the pre-reading skills that are going to make grade one reading, you know, teachers be able to kind of fly with them. And as Dr. Jetty mentioned, and it was that quote about the soft skills, I reached out to the first grade teachers and asked them for some input. I used the term soft skills, but they specifically mentioned those things that were there. And I had them take a look at the video to, you know, make sure it was what they represented. So I think that both kindergarten and grade one saw that it was a really beneficial program. So I think it's very exciting. So the other thing that is very important is 2 years ago, I had the number up there. It was something around 55% of the students in incoming grade one had attended our kindergarten. And last year it was in the 90 percentile plus range, or this fall, of students who attended our full day kindergarten incoming grade one. That provides continuity and, you know, kind of,
Right.
yeah.
Anyone else have anything? Well, again, I want to thank all the little ones for coming in and doing a great job on the video, and continued success in first grade. Y'all have a good night.
Perfect.
All right.
And you're welcome to head out, or you're welcome to stay. Either way, whatever you'd like to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Not disconnected. Crunches in my neighborhood. They're everywhere.
Do you have anything else, Scott, or was that it?
That was it for the presentation.
Okay.
Yep, and just a quick reminder for the board, the principals have uploaded their reports for October. So if you had questions for Scott, but the principals are not going to go through the report. So it's there, and you'll see, trying to think, actually, Mary is at our next meeting. But if you have questions for him down the road, otherwise, that's his presentation for tonight. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Scott.
Welcome.
You can head out too if you want.
Well, I think he wants to stay, so under my comments,
Okay.
we're just talking about a few GMS things,
Yep.
so.
Okay. I don't know if you're staying for that or not.
Yeah.
All right. So we have student council proposals for fundraisers. We have two of them. The first one is donation dots. I'm not sure who's going to be speaking on that. You can pull up a few more chairs if
There's
you
another
want.
chair over there.
So if you all can just like state your names.
I'm Becca. I'm the class historian.
I'm Julia. I'm the class secretary.
And I'm Emily. I'm the class vice president.
Oh, welcome.
Thank you.
So we have two fundraising proposals.
So the first one is donation dots, and it's a fundraiser where we have a sheet and they're all full of dots, and you basically ask somebody, would you like to donate $1, $2, or $3 by scratching off a space, and the proceeds will go to our class to help fundraise for certain activities that we have throughout the year, like day trips, other expenses that we'll have to pay for throughout the year. So it would be during like the fall, winter, springtime, whenever we can get it out to people.
We make it's $100 you get, right?
Yeah, you'll profit $100 from each card that you fill out completely by getting donations from.
So you don't win anything. You just pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just scratch and see what they have to do.
There needed to be like one winner in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Or $10.
Yeah, $0.
You don't have to pay.
And I'm sorry, what are the funds going towards?
So they would go towards our class trip that we're trying to plan. We have other expenses like graduation caps and gowns, day trips that there might be.
Any senior activity. There-
Cruise is
It could
expensive.
also go towards like other like trips. Like we have a school New York trip that happens every year. It could go towards that.
So it's just to help cut down on costs throughout the year for all the seniors.
So you mentioned school trip. Was there one trip in particular that?
So we're
The Boston trip that we submitted for review 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so the Boston trip actually got sent back to the high school because there were details that needed to be worked out with that. So, so that's been sent back to admin. It's not in front of the board yet.
Okay.
Okay, that's not, I was told something a little bit different, that more information was needed, which I have tonight. I wasn't told that we weren't talking about it this evening.
Yeah. So, so we'll bring that forward at the next meeting
Okay.
after it's been worked out by the high school. 'Cause I never heard back from the high school admin.
And then
Lawn
the-
signs? And then lawn
Yes,
signs?
The second fundraiser that we're working on is the lawn signs for graduating seniors. And for this, it's basically just a sign that parents can buy that advertises that like their child is graduating, and then they'd purchase it. How much is it? Do we have a price?
We
for
don't
it?
have an exact price on them yet. We're still trying to find a good company to work with. But we would really hope to get this through because it would be a great thing for parents and for seniors.
And I've seen a couple from BG along with Bedford.
Yeah.
Bedford was popular last year, so I got an email from one of the teachers with a couple links to look through as well.
So is it for the family's yard?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like a celebratory.
Different schools have been doing that lately.
I mean, every graduation party I went to, they all have banners and stuff like that. Anything, I would rather buy it from the school and just give the name and, yeah, that just sounds
Yeah, we
great to
can
me.
put like a design of like a cougar on it and just say Campbell High School in their name.
Have you come up with any designs yet, or is just the
We
concept right
talked
now?
to Perez about it, and what did he say? The Cougar Crazy.
I think that was also a t-shirt.
Go Crazy
T-shirt.
Cougars.
Yeah, he was talking about that, but we have to put something together as well.
And the money would go towards like the class of 2020 and the same kind of idea for fundraising.
So the same thing for
Yeah.
trips and different things. So when you get these funds, does it just go like in a general pool and it gets divided equally amongst all seniors, or how does it work?
Our treasurer is not here, but she's her and Miss Gaspar alongside like each other manage each individual student's accounts. So like they have their own money in account and they can choose what to do with the money once they earn it. So it's personal to the
Yeah,
student.
so we often do the Krispy Kreme fundraisers. So if a student sells a certain amount, they get the profit that they made and it goes into their account and they can spend it how they choose.
Okay.
So that'll work.
So on like the lawn signs, I guess I'm trying to understand. So is every senior, I mean, or,
So like a family can choose to purchase one.
right, but who, is it the person?
Where the money's going? So for that particular fundraiser, that would not be per student.
Okay.
That would go into the general account. And 10 years down the road, the class is going to have to organize their, 10-year reunion. We're trying to get, and I do want to talk about the Boston trip again, but we're trying to get coach buses in Boston versus school buses.
Okay.
That cost is tremendous. So, it's going to help offset. some
So
of
that's what
those.
this, all right. So that's why I was wondering if it's just individuals, because the other one is.
Yeah,
Right.
this
Yeah,
benefits
sorry,
the class as a whole.
And what profit do you make on the donation dots?
$100 off of each card.
You make $100 off each card?
And they can, as long as they, they hand in their card, they get $100 into their personal, we have a ledger, we keep a ledger.
Yeah.
And they can ask for another one, but they know that each sheet costs $15 to purchase. So if they check one out, we keep a list, an inventory of who's taking a card. If they don't return their card, having scratched off all the dots, they have to pay the $15.
So the cost is 15 and the profit's 100?
So this is for all students, right? The dots one is for all
Anyone
students,
who wants
any
it.
grade. And so if they're like a freshman,
No,
No,
it's just
it's
seniors.
just
I'm
seniors.
a senior class
Both are
advisor,
seniors.
so I can't-
Okay,
Anyone
got
can
it.
buy
do
that.
for those who are-
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That makes sense.
Seem to be both very low maintenance
Yeah.
type
good
of fundraisers.
ideas. Yeah, I like the idea of the lawn signs. That's smart.
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve the two fundraisers for the senior class of 2020.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Good luck, ladies.
Can I just ask for clarification about the Boston trip? So
No, Amy, at this time you can't because the board doesn't have it. We haven't seen it.
We haven't
We know nothing
haven't seen
about it.
Anything about it?
It hasn't come to the board
I
yet.
was told- can I just finish my sentence?
You may?
So I was told when I was given the paperwork back from Mr. Jetty
Okay.
that more detail was needed. I was never told, I prepared all of this extra stuff
Okay.
apparently that is needed for tonight.
So my assumption would be if you gave it to Dr. Jetty to begin with, then he gave it back to you requesting more, then you would give it back to him.
I
It hasn't come to the board.
I didn't receive it directly from Dr. Jetty. I
Okay.
received it from Mr. Perez.
So Amy, just to clarify, so the board needs materials the Friday prior to the meeting. So if you get that into me tomorrow, we'll get that posted for the October, what's the next meeting, Michelle? 16th. So we just have to have it the Friday prior. So we'll have that on the next.
I have to start, I have to start booking stuff. That was very, very clear and
Understood, but I didn't get anything back. We didn't get it to the board, so we'll have to do that.
can I just say this one last thing? So you guys had asked for more detail. The
Right.
problem is that I can't get a lot of detail because I can't book anything until I get a yes. So really, I provided a very detailed itinerary. I just have pictures of the websites of, Faneuil Hollins.
Right.
Because I I can't move on this until I get a yes. So
Let's, you and I meet and we'll come up with a plan and we'll get that to the board for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bring us correspondence. I don't recall seeing anything. If that's the case, then we'll come to the superintendent comments.
Okay, so thank you for that. So the first thing we have for you is the October 1st enrollment. October 1st was obviously yesterday, so these are hot off the press. And you can see that our numbers at Griffin are at 473. The LMS number is at 396 and the high school number is at 438. And that puts us at 1307 across the district. So what we're going to do with that now that we have those numbers captured, because October 1st is really our key trigger. That allows about a month of school for students to kind of settle in, families to settle in, and that becomes the most representative true number for our enrollment. We're going to take that and put it into, if you remember last year, we had the enrollment study that was performed for us and making the projections. So we'll update that with these numbers, kind of rolling everything up and start to make some projections. So we'll have that for the board at the next meeting. And then that will factor into our budget discussions, just so that as we're doing the budget development, those are the numbers that we'll be using to project off of. So,
No, we don't have a comparison to September. Do you know how much these vary from September?
so we had that at the last meeting, and
Yeah, I just didn't know if we knew it offhand. I mean, 1307, what the number was.
yeah, just bear with me because I
As Michelle lost her voice again. Poor thing.
This is killing me.
Oh.
I actually would be interested what the numbers are from September to October
Yeah.
1st.
all right. Bear with me. I'm going to pull it
Yeah,
up.
because I know registration.
Actually, we shared with you the kind of static version, and I have to get into my drive.
Yeah.
Use the first Friday count first. I think if they look in the last meeting agenda, it should still be attached.
It would help if I could spell. All right.
School board meetings, there we go. Fiscal year 19. Is this fiscal year 19? Guess so. Where are we? No, I'm not looking.
We still have a lot of houses for sale in town. Is there still movement, do you think? I was just curious.
Yeah. Should go to commercial break.
No, I apologize.
Sorry.
I know.
You have Michelle?
School board meetings.
All right. So who gets it first?
Sorry.
That's right.
Oh, they're there. Okay. 10.
So the Google Drive is great.
It's
So you try to find something and it's not so great.
No, that's it.
I'm getting all the projection numbers, but I'm
Yeah, I
not
saw
getting
those
that
too.
other number. So
I found that first day document. You want me to send it?
is that what it's under? It's not called enrollment?
I found it in the September 3rd board materials.
You can just give us the numbers. Do
It should be in the 9-4. Yeah.
you have it by school?
Yeah, first Friday count.
One then.
First day enrollment, September 3rd, 2019.
Yep.
Do you want registrations or actual?
Actuals for GMS?
Actual for GMS was 426. What?
Well, that did not include pre-K.
That did not include pre-K.
Right.
So how many in pre-K?
So with pre-K, was it 20 more, right? 43, I'm sorry, 43 more, so that would have been 426 and 43 is 469.
Yep. So you're up 4,
LMS 391,
up 5,
CHS 426.
down 12.
Wow. Where was the biggest
So,
So CHS lost 12.
Yeah.
And that's not registration.
I thought
That's,
you said 426.
I did, 426.
I'm sorry, up
So they're up
12.
12.
Up 12.
CHS is up 12?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we had people move in to the district, quite a few.
I don't think they're done.
Well, that's good news.
No, there is more coming in.
Let me get for the board the next meeting, so we'll have the projections, but this is actually from a spreadsheet that shows the first day number, actual head count. It shows the
Registration.
second Friday
Yep.
date number, and then it shows the October 1st.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like, up or down, and we're plus
Well, and
21.
Tom will tell you, his projection, if you compare back to last year's projection, he was projected at 378, and he's at 396, so he's up.
Since September.
He'll say 25, his math's off a little, but that's okay. He's feeling the pinch of more students.
How did we get 12 kids in Campbell in 1 month? That just blows my mind. We got 3 kindergartners and 1 other grade.
We had quite a few come in.
Wow. That just
So
seems
the
like a
town
lot.
itself, we had people move in.
How many
Yeah, but take a
people
look
do-
at the first numbers. How many were registered
Right.
at Campbell that didn't come?
But they did come because there were 12 more there now.
Right, well, the first weekend, a lot of times you don't have someone because they're on vacation.
Well, except the first week's number is, we do a physical head count.
Right.
So who showed up? If we showed you the number of what was on the roster, it would be much higher.
Yeah.
We kind of have to disregard that at the
Yeah.
beginning. We have families that are, they've relocated to another school and haven't told us yet. I mean, so there's some catch up at the beginning.
And a lot of the families that moved in
Had a lot of kids.
Big families,
Mm-hmm.
3, 4 kids.
All right. Shall we move on?
We will, except now I goofed myself up as to which agenda I'm looking at. Sorry. All right. So I just want to spend a few minutes talking about the deliberative session last night. So for board members, if you missed it, there was a pre-meeting with the town election officials. So I feel like we're in really good shape going into the election on October 29th.
I feel a lot better after that meeting than before.
And, I've made it clear that the board has every intent of following to the letter of the law, everything that needs to be done to make sure this election is done by all the rules and regulations. And I think that message was heard last night. So we are fairly certain, I mean, it's been said in the newspaper that that there will be a challenge of this entire special election to the Supreme Court. And so what we want that is to be a challenge based on the concept of, does an emergency exist? Did the judge make the right decision? So it should be on that grounds, and that we should not give any fuel to that by having election abnormalities or things that weren't followed. So that was the purpose of the meeting last night, and everybody understands that. And so we're all on the same page of making sure that this is done correctly, so that there won't be anything coming out of that.
Did the judge rule on the first?
So asking the judge to reconsider, the judge said, I've reconsidered it, my ruling stands. So he has issued his ruling that he was correct. And so now, I mean, I guess there's some outside chance that it doesn't get appealed, but the petitioner has certainly argued that he intends to do that, has said that he intends to do that. So we should prepare for that. Any feedback from the board on deliberative last night? Anything that we should be mindful of going forward, or things that surprised us about it?
No. Again, like I told you afterwards, I mean, I think the message is very clear, and it's the second time around with it, so hopefully we continue to get that information out there.
So our attention turns now to turning out the voters, because I think if we have a low voter turnout and the voters are not aware of the election, that could be something that somebody would use as an argument as to why it wasn't a valid election. So I think we're going to begin the promotion stage pretty quickly, getting word out in the press. I spoke with Rick Charbonneau from Continental Paving today about the signs that are out regarding the fire truck parade. He's going to allow the school district to promote the election on those signs. He told us we can take them and move them around town if we need to. So we'll not leave them just in the static locations. We'll move them around a few times over the next few weeks, and hope for the best. I mean, it won't be for a lack of trying if voters don't turn out.
I emailed Rob Fay last night to see if he could interview, you or the LEA about the election.
Excellent.
So I haven't heard back, but
keep me
Set
posted.
that out there.
We'll do whatever we can to make sure people are aware of what the question is and the importance of voting on it. All right, the fourth grade questions, sophomore and senior projects. I'm going to take a pass on that because I did not touch all the bases, so I'm going to get back to that one. But I'll get back to the board at the next meeting. So the next topic left over from last time is the GMS lunch. And Principal Thompson has shared with you the reviews that he's done. And I characterized this last time as sort of the game of whack-a-mole, that when you make one adjustment to it, it causes another issue to pop up somewhere else. And I think what Principal Thompson's trying to share with the board are that all the proposals that have come in, all of the ideas have been really duly considered. And that at this point, the feeling is that the current schedule, which is with the 4 lunches and the third grade split, is the option that is best for the school. But I wanted to pause a second and see if there were any follow-up questions or observations that board members had based on the review of the material that came in.
I went last week and observed recess and lunch. And, from a recess perspective, it looked like all the kids were playing fine. Nobody was by themselves. It didn't seem to be issues on the playground itself. The lunches were definitely busy. The first one, the second and third grade lunch was probably less loud than the other lunch, the third and fourth grade lunch. But the first lunch, the second and third grade got loud when they cleared their tables. But my impression was the monitors really, they know what they're doing, and they're able to, manage the kids as best they can. It seemed like it was under control to me.
I don't think it's a managing thing.
again,
I think
it's a
it's the
lot.
fact they don't want the kids split up. Did you see
Right.
kids in intergrades mingling?
I don't know which grade was who, but I just saw
have
kids
complete
playing.
faith in our monitors. I think the issue that some of the parents have is the emotional.
I thought I had a great suggestion, which was to at least try to address the fact that they were split by maybe, every 3 months, switch which grades were together. Which classes were together. Little did I know, Scott brought that forward to third grade, to the third grade team. And they said that would actually be a worse solution because then it affects scheduling of
They would
the.
just be beginning to build relationships in the current group, for one thing, and then they would switch groups in 9 weeks. And in addition, it would impact all of the services that come into the classroom. So Title I, reading, math support, enrichment, because often the groups are between classes. And if now the classes have a different schedule, then they'd have to redo the groups, which they said would impact not only grade 3, but all of the other grades, because those same service providers help in grade 1, 2, and 4.
So ironically, one of the comments back from the teacher, the third grade teacher group, not on behalf of the group, but one teacher, right?
Yes, yeah.
Actually said she feels like her kids have adjusted at this point.
Kids are pretty resilient.
That was last year's buzzword.
Resilient?
That was last year.
Well, see, it worked.
Now we're not resilient?
We're not resilient.
But they are.
That's ongoing.
So
No.
I suppose the only thing I have from seeing all the information, Scott, you sent out and put out there, you obviously done your homework and put a lot of process into it and thought. So obviously next year it's going to happen again. And I know you'd rotate the class so that the teams cannot lose every year.
Yes, yeah.
It doesn't sound like there's really a way of fitting a fifth lunch in. And even with that, then it just causes more problems.
I think
The
it's-
only way would be to extend the overall time that we take to do lunch and recess. And there are two possible solutions. Last year, we began the year, as I'm sure the board will remember, with 5 lunches, 5 recesses. When we added kindergarten, that was the new player for recess and lunch. And what happened is, even though we started the lunches 15 minutes earlier than we had the year before, we extended, it was only like 5 minutes, I believe, more later, and we squeezed it all in. But it was felt that we were really getting too late in the afternoon. And it also added cost for the kitchen, because now they have to have people come in earlier in order to be prepared earlier and stay later. So those were the considerations. So we tried squeezing it all together with 5-minute transitions, and that was a disaster, frankly. So we changed it to that in September, I believe. And then early November, we had to go to a 4-period solution. And that's when we split grade 1. So this year, because it's grade 3, the grade 3 team still has their special time every day, all year, when they're all free, so they can meet. Last year, it was difficult for grade 1 because not only did we split them at lunch recess, but also we split them for special in order to have a 5th special.
Right.
Yeah. So I think we're in the best place we can be based on, teacher feedback and lots of consideration.
Yeah, it certainly feels like we're trading one problem for another. The length of the day for
Yeah.
emotional, social concerns for our kids.
So I take it at this point, next year, it'll be the same thing, but with a different class.
Yes, so the thought was if we used this approach with grade 2 next year, then grade 1 the teacher team won't experience it next year or this year. Grade 3 teacher team wouldn't experience it. The students would only experience it one time because it was grade 1 last year, grade 3 this year, grade 2 next year. They're not gonna repeat this.
Right.
So it seemed like the most mitigated impact, I guess, is the best way to put it.
So for next year, if we could solve this problem, would more kitchen help? Like if we, as we're budgeting for next year, if the answer is another monitor or more kitchen staff in order to make it work so that we don't have to split grade levels, is that an option? Is that something that,
Or is it mostly the time issue?
So that's the trade-off. I shared with the board what a 5-period lunch recess thing, and I showed what would happen if we moved it by 5-minute increments. The overall time remains the same, but the challenge is that lunch for the first lunch, whoever that is, and it would likely be K or 1, becomes earlier and earlier in the morning. Right now, they're having lunch at 11:05, but when we begin to move lunch prior to 11 for a full day kindergarten program, even with an afternoon snack, that used to be our theory with grade 3 lunch being late, they had a morning snack. But even with that, that's a really long day for kindergarten. I have to keep grade 2, 3, and 4 specials back to back, so not lunch recesses, it's specials, in order to give those students access to the halftime computer program. And I think that's really important. So right now, that's a halftime position that ends at noon. And so they have to have morning special. And that's another one of the planning considerations. To answer your question, would it be possible? I think that we could run into problems with finding time for computer class, and somebody is going to end up with lunch prior to 11 o'clock.
What time does your school start, lunch, your elementary school?
Our Ks start at 10:40, but
That's when my school
well, we don't
starts.
start school. We start school at 7:30, so we
don't
get
wait.
out at
Our
2.
first lunch starts at 11:15.
And we start school at 8:25, so we're an hour later. That's pretty early for lunch. And
So I've been advocating for a few years to extend the computer position to full time. Would that help solve the situation?
I think it would, because then I wouldn't be bound to have grades 2, 3, and 4 in the morning. One of the things or the proposal suggestions I heard was that it should be possible because we used to have the 5th grade, which is true, and we had 5 lunches then. So we don't have records that go back that far, frankly, electronic records. However, I asked some of our veteran teachers, and one of them was able to find a schedule for the 4th grade from 1992, which is before we lost grade 5 in 97. And in that year, grade 4 had lunch at 10:45. So we didn't have computer class then.
Right.
So I don't know when their special might have been. I couldn't reconstruct that all from imagination. But to answer your question, if we had a full-time computer teacher, it would give us more flexibility as to what time of day specials would be, which also impacts lunch recess.
10:45 is pretty early for lunch.
It is.
I think 1:30 is late for lunch.
I agree. They don't have a lunch at 1:30.
Is that 1:00?
It's one.
1:05.
I have
1:05.
that.
It's 1:05.
I have so many schedules in my head. I'm gonna look. Is it 1:25? Here is the comment. The last lunch begins right now at 1:05. Is that what you said? I'm sorry. Yep.
That's 4th and half a 3rd.
Yeah.
So I think one thing that if we do end up doing this again next year, Scott, like splitting, I think probably notifying the parents that will be involved so that they're aware that their class will probably be split.
Yes. And I do acknowledge, I would like to explain, I didn't anticipate that it would be so upsetting as it was to some parents. And I do acknowledge that I didn't really share it with them. We didn't have much of a response from parents at all for when we split grade 1. So it kind of caught me by surprise. And I do acknowledge that that would have been helpful for parents to know. Because what I heard from some parents, and more than one, is that they had been telling their students in grade 3 that even though they wouldn't be in the same class, because, you know, we do step-up day on the last day of school, that they would see their friends at recess. And I know that was upsetting for both parents and the kids when that happened. So, yes, we will certainly, if we end up having to devise a schedule like this, keep in mind that parents will want to know that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but during lunch, doesn't like the class sit together?
Yes, they
So
do.
it's not like they're with a friend from another class. They have to sit with that class.
Yeah, we do that in order to help manage the big groups in and out because, you know, our biggest lunches now are about 135 kids. So they will sit in class groups at a table. So then we can say Mrs. Ash's table, you know, and then they all go. It just helps move people along. Plus, they know they're with peers they know well.
And Terry, you mentioned that it gets loud. I've been going there for lunch now for I don't know how many years. And let me tell you, I don't care if there's 80 kids in there or 150 because I've been in both ends. It's loud. And then it gets quiet, then it gets loud, then it gets
It's a
quiet.
small space.
They weren't screaming. It was just, you know, it's just
They have a lot to
It's
say.
talking. A lot of
Yeah.
kids talking. Yeah.
How do you like the new color scheme in the cafeteria? Did you catch that when you were
It
in
was
there?
great.
I
Yeah.
think it's
So
It's a little
much
more
better.
soothing.
tempers down the
Yeah.
orange a little
Yeah,
bit in
the-
there.
and
So
the paw prints on the wall are terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was 4 walls of screaming orange. And
Right.
Now you just have the overspray of orange still
Yes,
existing here
I
and
know,
there.
I see that.
just hints of orange.
Yeah.
On the lunch issue, just shifting a little bit. So there was also some parent comments just regarding food choices in the cafeteria, in particular choking hazards. And I just want to compliment Principal Thompson's reaction. And really the nurse stepped up with making sure that all the students are trained on how to let somebody know that they are in fact choking so that they can communicate that to somebody, and also they can be aware of, wait a second, something's going on with my lunch buddy here, so that can get reported in. So we're doing what we can regarding the concerns that parents had. We're also following guidelines that we've received from the American Medical Association. Frankly, it's awful to say, but there are adults who choke on food also. So it's not just a child issue. But we're being aware of that and making sure that we're approaching it in the safest way we possibly can. So, and I think having the nurse in, the other piece was making sure that our lunch monitors were trained and refreshed on choking, the Heimlich maneuver, how to do that on a child, et cetera. So again, relative to the lunch, there's a scheduling issue, but there's also a safety issue that we want to make sure that we hit on also. And then a quick shift, if we may, to the bus departure. And if you click on that link, I think we're now at a relatively stabilized point. I think our bus routes are fairly well figured out, although we had an email today about another potential change. But Principal Thompson's done a good job of plotting for the board the reality of what dismissal looks like. So you can see that we really are starting to call the buses down at 3 o'clock. That means students are left in the classroom. Bus students are left in the classroom waiting for that call from 2:50. So it's about a 10-minute period where they're waiting while the parent dismissal goes on. And then they get on the bus, and the buses are pulling out, departing from the school at 3:08. So they're really not on the bus that long. So when we hear a concern that they're waiting 15 minutes, it's not waiting on the bus. I think they're saying it's 10 minutes in the classroom for the bus call, then a transition out to the bus. But you can see by the times that they're not on the bus as long as some of the concerns came in. So
I noticed on Friday the buses got out really early, and I'm assuming because everyone was at Nature's Classroom, so not having the sixth graders sped up the LMS route, so they got to GMS faster.
You were right.
Because I was at Wilson Farm, and I'm like, holy moly, there's no parents are going to be out there for those kids.
So I guess my concern is, I don't think the teachers are going to like me for this, but but the official dismissal time is 3:10, right, for GMS?
Is on our adequacy thing where we have to do our school day, we say that the end of the instructional day is 2:50.
Oh, you do say that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess, I don't know.
So in counting instructional minutes, you're counting 2:50 as the end.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So I just want to make sure we're teaching kids up till, up till dismissal when possible. So at some point, somebody said 3:10 was.
I said that because really that's when the buses are pulling out, right? So if you look at the times, it's 3:10 is the pullout.
Okay,
period.
so it's just a difference in what is dismissal. Is dismissal when the kids are done learning, or is it when everybody leaves the school?
And we heard from a teacher last time that to prepare for dismissal, instruction is ending as early as 2:35, I think.
Right.
So, because then we're prepping for the period of time where we start dismissing at 2:50. So, what's going on between 2:25 and 2:50? That's a 15-minute window every day. I think a couple of things. This is really eye-opening. As we examine school start and end times, and we think about, the board has just engaged in quite a conversation about what could configurations look like, school buildings and structures and so forth. I think we have to keep all of that at the front and center of our thinking, because if there are ways to economize efficiencies, to capture some of that time back, we should try to figure that out.
Yeah, I'd really be interested if it really starts at 2:35 for a child being dismissed, the early bell to get ready.
Absolutely. As a former
15
teacher,
minutes?
Well, I
wait till
suspect.
winter time. You get
Well, I think it depends. I
boots
think it depends what class. I mean,
It does, definitely.
you talk in fourth grade, they walk to the locker, they're done in like a minute.
When do you start getting ready for dismissal? 2:35.
Yeah, and it's the beginning of the year, and the kids, they're still getting to learn.
Yeah.
There are a
the-
bunch
the
of little
routines and
bodies
everything.
out there they're chatting, they're dropping their backpacks, they're forgetting things. It's,
Yeah,
it's a
it's
process.
Kindergarten, I think,
Controlled
I
chaos.
believe
Yes.
this special goes till 2:40. So when I heard that comment, what struck me is they're getting back to the kindergarten and getting ready. So I'm wondering if we can make it a little quicker in the older grades, because they have the last special of the day.
I have a question about kindergarten since you brought it up. When the
Yep.
kindergarten teachers have specials,
Yep.
who is have dismissal of bus duty? Who is watching their kids in the classroom? Because I noticed there weren't doors. So if Mrs. Adamakis' room,
Right.
like there's no connection. What do they do with these kids?
Yes, so they do it a little bit differently than the other grades. In what they do is they group the students in all the kindergarten classrooms by where they're going. So there's one group that's going to parent pickup. There's another group that goes to Kitty Connection, another group that goes to the after-school program, and then buses 1 through 9. So
that sounds so intense.
it
Yeah.
works because it's pretty regular. Like every day, it's
Yeah.
going to look pretty similar.
Right.
So the teachers share that responsibility, and
So they pick up the slack or whoever's out on the
yes, they use
sidewalk?
the central
Yeah.
hallway. So
Oh, in the hallway, okay.
yeah.
You talk about this chart being eye-opening. One of the things that I think it reinforces it, everyone kind of like was questioning why the early bell kids go first and why not that, because the buses aren't there.
Yeah, I figured that out. Driving by.
Yeah.
And we have to remember, and the front office staff takes great pains to make sure that every student's accounted for. So, nobody's getting on a bus to find a parent sitting at school waiting for the child. So, there are a lot of things that are in place. So it is done in waves, but that's the reality of it. And, the compromise, if you did sort of everything at once, is somebody would be left. Just listening to a principal today at the law conference who talked about, parents not showing up until 5:00 because miscommunication about who was going where and so forth. And, and then the strain that puts on the school to care for the child till 5. And we're not having that situation. So there's trade-offs that go with the way this is done.
So it's too bad Ms. Lecklot is not here. Do you dismiss your kids different than they do in the middle school?
I've never looked at their dismissal.
So I think all they do is blow a whistle and they go.
So yes, very much so.
Because those buses are there and they're out in like minutes.
Yes, so we have to think about, degrees of autonomy. We have students who are 5, and so we have a bus buddy system. Mrs. McDonald asked about, how do they do it in the kindergarten? So we have 4th grade bus buddies, and every group of kindergarten students is accompanied by, in some cases, adults. So the really big groups, the parents take them to Parent Drop-Off, Kitty Connection, and to the after-school program. And that's probably all of those 3 groups together, about half of the kindergarten students. The remaining students with adult supervision outside are accompanied by 4th graders to the correct bus. So the way we do dismissal, because as you see and acknowledge, the buses aren't all there. So we call in the office the order of the buses in the order of arrival, and they call them by order of arrival. So what that means is the kids who get called first know they're going way up front.
Yep.
And we really, knock on wood, we really don't make errors with kids. I can't say never, but it's very unusual that a kid gets to the wrong place.
Well, it's understandable you dismiss that way. Like I said, middle school, they just flow out.
Yeah.
I can't imagine with kindergarten and everything else. So it makes sense as to why it's like 11, 12 minutes, 13 minutes before the bus leaves.
As recently as last week, because when we do arrival, 1st and 2nd grade all go in the same door, so they're closest to their area. As recently as last week, I saw a student I went, that's a 1st grader going in with the 4th graders, because she was with siblings and friends. And 2 weeks ago, we had a kindergartner who go in the totally opposite direction. They follow other groups of kids that they're talking to because they're not paying attention. So I think that our attention to like a, what's the word I want? A systematic and kind of, stage-wise, a staged dismissal is really safer for kids.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything for Ms. Thompson?
I have a question.
Yep.
It has to do with dismissal. Can I ask why you have the half-day kindergarten kids sign out every day? Can't their parents just pick them up in the circle and not have to get out of the car? I was just curious why you did that.
They don't have access to the kindergarten building because it's a locked building. So when we talked about a half-day program, what we determined so that they can be there for the social part is they would go right after lunch because it's recess then lunch.
Mhm.
So the simplest thing is that they go right to the office, and that way we have a record that the student has been signed out. We do keep records that students have been dismissed.
They're not dismissed. They're set up for a half-day program. I don't think they're dismissed.
Well,
Who's going to bring them out there?
The paras bring the kids back from lunch.
They do. They stop right in the office. In the same way that when parents pick up their kids at 2:50, we make sure that they are signed out so that we can account for them. So it's only it seemed to work really well.
Okay, I was just curious
Yeah.
why.
If you were to dismiss your child from kindergarten early, you'd have to do the same thing. You
But
sign them
they're
up.
signed up for a half-day program. That's their program. That's their school day.
But they're leaving the building. And it's no different than a fourth grader who leaves.
Kids
the
we talking about
building.
right now? One?
Just a couple.
Two.
Yeah. Okay.
They're still part of our district.
They are, but we want them safe.
Okay.
Great.
All set.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
And,
you.
and nice job with the student audience tonight. That was
Thank you so
spectacular.
much.
Great.
I was so
Good to see.
impressed with those 8 students, I must tell you. That was, I thought they had great insights, and they're 6.
Can we put
Let's keep
that on our
hearing them do the Pledge
website
of
now?
Allegiance too.
I have.
You should have had them lead it.
Yeah. Well, they were.
Yeah, absolutely.
This could end up being on
That'd be
social
great.
media, so yes, I think we're all set to do that. Thank you.
It's like
What is
a dying
that
cricket or
sound?
something.
A cricket?
Invasion of crickets coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed that last night too.
It's getting very spooky.
For them to come through.
Halloween
Yeah.
crickets.
It's creepy.
All right. That'll bring us to school board comments. Liz? Okay. Anyone? I just have one thing I just want to bring up, and it actually stems from the conversation that we had at our last meeting, part of it, and this evening, and that's as far as, the concern we had, or questions as far as lunches at GMS and that type of thing. But there's been a few instances where this has occurred. And as I think there are school board members that are reaching out in an area that really is not what you should be doing. Sending information or questions to principals or ADs should go through the chair. Only so that we can streamline rather than sending information that probably has already been answered, information that's already been researched, and just taking up valuable time of different individuals. If you're reaching out as a parent, that's fantastic. You have all the right to do so, but as a board member, and then even indicating, hey, I'm a board member, so I'm asking these questions kind of thing. The other person may think that, hey, you're representing the school board in your actions, where you're really not. So I just ask that we funnel that through the chair so that we can make certain that it goes to the proper channels and we can get you the answers that you need. That's all I have. Anyone else? That'll bring us community forum.
Hi, Heidi Ames, 21 Moose Hollow. Excuse me, I'm going to try and keep my voice calm. I'm extremely frustrated with the response tonight from the school board, from the superintendent specifically. As a parent, I have raised, I think, some serious concerns, and there has been radio silence for the past 2 weeks. And so in terms of how this goes forward, I understand I certainly as a parent don't get to make policy decisions. But I feel like follow-up would have been key. Because it sounds like the discussion that I sat through last time and indicated to you that there is a significant amount of parent feedback that has been extremely negative regarding the decision to split grades is being ignored. Because someone, for some reason that has yet to be explained, has decided that this is the better approach. And again, you don't have to necessarily answer to me individually, but when you are hearing feedback from the staff that they do not agree with these changes, and yes, maybe one third grade teacher has come forward and said her class is now adjusted, but there are 3 teachers that their classes may not have. My daughter has not. And I feel like you're ignoring that. I feel like I don't even know what the next step is because I feel so dismissed again by this board. And so I would like to ask how we go about what is the next step in terms of reconsideration. I understand you have a nice little disclaimer on your agenda that you don't have to answer questions. And so I understand that. But I would appreciate hearing from somebody, even if it's not tonight, regarding what the next steps could be going forward, because I feel like open communication is important. We talked about parent surveys. We talked about surveying the district to feel out, hey, parents, would you rather have your kindergartner start lunch 10 minutes early and maybe whatever the last lunch is, 4th or 3rd grade, you end 10 minutes later if it means during the course of your child's 5 years at GMS, including kindergarten, they are not split up. That survey, to my knowledge, has not been initiated, that feedback. However, the general feedback has been they are against this decision to split grades. The teacher feedback, again, has been that they're against the decision to split grades. And so I feel like the conversation last time went from let's talk about alternatives, let's talk about solutions, to, well, maybe we can think about it for next year. This year's all done. This year's going to stay the same. These 3rd graders have to deal with this. They had no notice of it. They have to deal with it for the rest of the year. And so I'm rather frustrated with the lack of communication on a general level, both from the principal about this policy, as was indicated earlier, I expressed that last time, but also from the superintendent and from the board, because I feel like there was some follow-up, there were some questions, there was no input, there was no further discussion. I purposely have not pushed anything the last 2 weeks for the purpose of seeing what those alternatives might be. And from what I'm hearing, there's none. And so looking at, I did go on the website today. I did go out and print the board materials myself. I did see for the board's reference, there was a rainbow colored, there's no page number, so I can't reference a particular page number, but it was the document that had rainbow colors on it. I, as a parent, would give my thoughts that I think the blue schedule, which isn't showing up on mine, but the blue schedule, 10 minutes, I think a lot of parents would support that. And I would really enjoy some sort of feedback or survey that could be initiated. I don't have to be the one to initiate it. I will as I can, but I think coming from the school, it might even carry more weight and you might get a higher response. But feel out parents on this. If not believing that there are parents that are against this or it's being dismissed, feel them out, because again, I really do strongly feel like this is an important issue. There were a lot of parents that contacted me in advance of this board meeting tonight saying, should I be there? Should I come and give my opinions? And I said, no, hold tight. Let's see what alternatives are coming. None came tonight. And I'm very disappointed in that. And so I'm trying to take emotion out of it. But I feel very let down by a school board that I have put a lot of faith in. And I am frustrated and look for direction, because I understand, again, that not everyone can be made happy with every decision. I disagree with the game of whack-a-mole. I think in this case, there is one mole that is sticking up higher than the other or lower than however the analogy you want to make it. This problem is much greater than 10 minutes early for lunch. And I think that we can, if we work together, solve that problem. And I'm not feeling any ounce of community or trying to work together. And so that is my comment. Thank you.
I speak to that? I mentioned last week after we had this discussion that I got frustrated a little bit, and I don't mean this disrespectful at all. Through our training, as I mentioned, it's the wrong format. We can't make policy for this.
Mhm.
This is the school's decision and the superintendent's decision. And I'm not trying to, but I don't even know if legally we could make policy on this. I mean, this is a school decision. So, and I'm not trying to push it away, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be discussed, but this is one of those things that does have to go through the school and through Mike. And if there's something outside of that, if there's a problem, personnel, I guess with Mike's our only employee. The teachers aren't our employees. And that's the only thing I would point out is it really has to go through the school. It's not something, we can listen to it. I don't have kids in the elementary
No,
school
I understand.
anymore.
I understand.
And I know
Yeah.
the parents that have kids in the elementary school have feelings about it, but I just think it really has to go through Scott and if Mike,
Dr. Jetty.
if there's an issue. And I'm not trying to push you aside. It's just, my concern is I do not want to step on Mike. He's doing a great job for our district, and it's got to come there. I don't think it's me putting my oar in the water and oiling it up is going to help it. So I'm trying to stay out of it for that.
And I would, and if I can briefly respond to that, if you don't mind, I certainly understand where you're coming from. I understand there are different levels here, and I have tried to work my way up towards that level, starting with third grade teachers, soliciting feedback, meeting with the principal individually and with the assistant principal, to meeting with Dr. Jetty, to again, following up with him prior to the next school board meeting. My frustration that's coming out tonight is particularly because I was under the impression, and during this conversation, it was said to me that Dr. Jetty brought it up during his superintendent's report to solicit feedback and guidelines from the board. So if he is soliciting feedback from the board in terms of being able to go back to Scott, I do feel like it is the board's purview to weigh in on that if that's feedback is being solicited. And so my understanding, the conversation we had on the telephone prior to that board meeting was you were hoping to get some feedback and some guidelines from the board on how to proceed with this particular area. And then from that phone call, there's been no additional follow-up. And so I did not come here tonight thinking this issue was done for the year. I did not come here tonight thinking that this issue was done for next year, and that it's just second grade is going to be split up next year. And I don't appreciate that. I feel very dismissed in the policy. And so I come back to, okay, you do what you're supposed to do as a parent. You meet with your teacher first, and then you go up the chain. What happens when that answer is not acceptable? What happens when that answer is, we're going to go with what our principal has advised us, even though there aren't specific answers to, again, I presented an option of the monitor staying here and there. There's been no response to that from anyone. And that's not even one of the options that's presented in the attachments. And so I certainly am not here to say that Mr. Thompson hasn't done his due diligence in the sense that he has looked at other options. I would not say that. But I'm here to say that I don't feel like it's been an open forum. I don't feel like it's been open communication. I don't feel like any parent feedback has been solicited either before the decision was made or after the decision was made. And as a parent, now that I am providing that feedback, I feel dismissed. And so to answer your question, I certainly understand why I'm not asking here, asking each of you to vote on whether it's a good policy or not, but I'm asking you, what are the next steps in terms of you have parents telling you this decision doesn't work, and you have teachers. That's my bigger concern. You have teachers, all of them as teams, who came forward and said, this doesn't work. And it's still continuing, and it's still being talked about being continued for next year. And there's no, let's meet, let's form a committee, let's form a task force, let's look into this, let's delve into this with parent feedback. There's none of that. And so that's my frustration. And that's where I feel like I've hit a dead end, but I am a stubborn person and refuse to hit a dead end. And so I'm looking for what's next. What can we do?
And if I may, Heidi, I think it really lies in Scott's hands. He's the principal of this school. There are a million moving parts going on in that building. So he and I have met. We've talked about all the concerns. You had questions that I couldn't answer. I don't know all the ins and outs of scheduling students and the way the specials operate and, all those million moving parts. So based on that feedback, Scott's gone back and looked at it. But I also have to trust that my principals know how to run a school and that they understand at the end that they're making the best decision they can based on the feedback that they have. And unless I'm given evidence otherwise, that's where I have to come down. And I will certainly have a follow-up conversation with Scott. If there's something, I would suggest a meeting back with Scott, because if there are specific questions that have not been answered, let's get those answered. And so that you understand what he's weighing and trying to reach the best decision there. But you're accurate. teachers, so I talk to people and I listen to parents, and I had a few parents who said, you know, it was a little rough at the beginning, but my kid has now made so many friends in the other grade they're split with. I don't want you to pull them back out of there because now they've kind of settled into the routine at this point. So it's the beginning part that's tough, but they're like, let it lie. So there is that feedback also that's out there from people. You know, teachers will say it's not ideal, but we can make it work. So, you know, I don't know what ideal looks like, because I think ideal is different to every single individual too. So it's just hard to really come up with what's going to be best for doing all the amazing things that happen at GMS on a daily basis, from arriving at school to leaving safely to being fed to, you know, I mean, they have a pretty good safety record of the way they approach stuff and a good academic record also. So I guess that's my reaction, is a follow-up meeting with Scott. I'd be happy to sit in on it if that's something that you'd like to do, and just see if we can make sure that you understand all those moving parts.
Can I say something too?
Yeah.
I heard you. I was at the PTO meeting. I knew this was a passion point for you and a number of other people. So on my own, I reached out to Mr. Thompson and asked if I could go observe, and made the effort. And were you just talking about maybe having one monitor stay on the playground? And is that what you were saying? Because I observed that.
I can get in with that afterwards. Okay.
Well, I mean, there were a few things that were brought up, and that is one I feel that will not work, because you need 3 people to take those lines of kids inside.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it. I mean, by the time the first one is in there, somebody's already in. You got to have somebody in the middle. So it really wouldn't work to have.
That wasn't the suggestion.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. But like, yeah, I tried to come up with an alternative that it would at least, you know, it's not perfect. I don't think there is a perfect solution. I really don't. I think it's almost like, I hate to say it, it's the lesser of 2 evils. Like, what is, you know, what, it just, the feedback I got from my observation too, from speaking to the monitors and paras and tutors, some of which are parents, said that last year that it was just too early and too late. That was like, they were inundated with feedback from parents about it being too early and too late. So, and not being able to have 5-minute transition times, which I saw were impossible, because it takes like 3 minutes to get the kids out with all the teachers coming to get them. You know, they go one class at a time. There are definitely many factors involved in this. And one of the questions I did ask at the PTO meeting was, you know, I kind of asked the parents, I said, so how early and how late are you willing to go? Like, to me, that's the biggest thing in my mind, you know, that factor versus, you know, the splitting of the classes. And
in response, I think you're exactly right. I think, again, my question would be, can we do a survey to figure out which one is the lesser of the 2 evils? Because I think, and which parents may say, you know what, leave it as is for this year. And which parents may say, no, my child is still struggling. It should still be changed. It's still a problem. I would strongly suggest soliciting that feedback, because the parents you're going to hear from are the ones who are the most passionate on the issue. The parents you're going to hear from about the times are the ones who are the most passionate about the issue. I'd be curious to hear from the parents who are living it day to day that may not think there's an ability to change things. There's a lot of parents that think policy is policy and I'm not going to go up against it. I don't have time for it, or whatever. Solicit feedback across the board, because I feel like it will be, from my discussions anyway, it will be overwhelmingly in favor of a 10-minute shift isn't what the proposed schedule was last year. It's not as early and it's not as late. And so is the compromise somewhere in the middle. And so that's what I would feel like a next step could be. But again, I come here today to express my disappointment and frustration.
And Heidi, I hope you're hearing that it's not, let's go back to Scott, have another conversation, and just make sure we understand. And I'm happy to join you in that conversation. And then surveying parents can be another step. So, but I think we have to be ready to realize that we can't run the schools by survey either. And because you can start to survey on so many different matters of things that it'll just bog down our ability to operate safely and efficiently for the students. So it doesn't mean it doesn't fit in this case, but it's a slippery slope, as you know.
Sure. But I think parents and teachers will provide you some of your best feedback.
Absolutely.
And you should be asking the questions and not just making decisions based on what you think is best.
Understood.
And the again, I'm happy to meet with Scott again.
Yep.
But it was a very dismissive first meeting. It was a very dismissive email. And so it doesn't appear that there's an opening for any type of future communication. But I'm certainly willing to, I'm willing and
Yeah.
putting on the record, I am more than willing to sit down and continue the conversation.
Let me join you in that.
I would love that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was, it's all done now.
I love you, Heidi. I appreciate everything she does, but I'm coming from a totally different angle on this.
Can you state your name and address?
Paul
please?
is Bicky. I'm 3 Cocopias Drive, and I tuned into the last board meeting and had a couple of things that I wanted to touch base on, and I'm really glad that you are bringing up that this is not the forum to be bringing it in, because as a parent who can't make it to every board meeting to have something to say and be able to express their opinion, watching it on TV and watching it go to really late at night is really frustrating. I would hope that the board would stick to their agenda as it is set, that they would stick to their times as it is set, and that they would move things along. You have a very important person that needs to get back to work tomorrow, and I would like him to be on his top game and get a good night's sleep. I know you're work
I didn't
on
know you
very
were coming,
little
right?
sleep.
Can we be clear?
No, I'm sure you don't, but I work in this world and I get your position. And it's very frustrating to live in a community that has a board meeting that goes on and on and on about things that really aren't the board's positions. I got a very wonderful letter. Everybody got a great letter from Mr. Jetty at the beginning of the year stating that if you have a problem, here is the avenue to take. So if they're starting to reach out to you and you and you, and you start bringing it through this forum, you're undermining the person who is leading this district. And that is very frustrating for me as an educator. And it's very frustrating for me as a parent in this district, because half of these opinions that are being brought out are certainly not my opinions that are being brought out. And if that's the way they're going to be brought out, then we have to make sure that we're doing it in the way that it's supposed to be done by a board. So I really appreciate you last week kind of stepping in and saying, this isn't the forum to bring this up. I think we were talking about buses or dismissal. I don't even know what it was about, but I would prefer the district to be talking about things that could actually make a difference and settle decisions, like maybe the lunch issue or the bus issue or things like that, which are more important things that we should be planning further on, like maybe a new building or things like that, where we actually have something that we're working on. So, I don't agree with changing anything about the third grade schedule. Year after year after year, this is a small community. My kids are going to be in the same grade as these kids from kindergarten all the way through high school. They're going to have plenty of times when they're in classes, when they're not in classes, when they see each other at lunch, when they don't. This social emotional part of, my daughter was like, oh, I don't get to see my friends. And I was like, oh, well, make new ones, because it's a small town and that's what you have to do. She's going to have to learn how to be a little gritty and deal with it. And if we know, I'm sure all the educators know that when those kids get to high school and go off to college, that is the one thing that they are lacking, because we like to pave this little clean road for them to make everything so perfect. Yeah, the kids are hungry. If the kids don't eat at lunch, guess what? They're hungry, and then they'll figure it out and they'll eat next time. There, and it's funny because you hear, I want my child to have this beautiful lunch at school and yada, yada, yada. But then at the soccer field, you hear, well, on our way to 12 different activities, I'm throwing them a granola bar in the back, and, we're not even having dinner together. So is it really the school's responsibility to make that so perfect? We had, and the timing is fine. There was talk about the timing, about 25 minutes not being long enough. And I would hope that the angle that the board would come from is not, how are we going to spend more time hiring more monitors? But that's time taken away from all the other things that we need to be doing in the building. And that's teacher contractual time that they owe to our students. So I would hope that that would be made up in some capacity on the other end. I don't want to be hiring another monitor. I don't believe in monitors monitoring lunch and recess. The people who are trained to do that kind of stuff and know child development are the teachers that we hire. This is a problem that's not just in Litchfield. It's a problem in I get it in my building. I get it in everybody's building. And sometimes you do just have to come down with an answer and say, that's where it is. I would recommend some things that would change, like let the kids sit where they do want to sit because I do that in my building, and guess what? They fly to their seats to get with their friend, gets them sitting down and eating a lot quicker than dilly-dallying when they know they have to sit without their friends. We have our kindergartners eat in our classrooms, and our assistant paras go get the hot lunches for them if they have hot lunch. And then that way you have 2 lunches going on at the same time, and you take away a lunch in the schedule. I know that Scott has done his due diligence because I am an administrator and I see him asking questions all the time. And it's interesting to see all the principals in the state reply and every issue that they have with this kind of grade level. So again, it's not any different. You're not dealing with a different problem than anybody else. So for Scott to find an answer that's outside of the box, he's not finding it. So with that said, my initial reason for coming here is something totally on the other side of the spectrum, and something that I feel is more important. But I wanted to talk about last year's vote and sort of this year, and the when we put in for a now I'm losing the reason why I'm here.
Teacher contract?
Nope.
Oh.
I hope everybody gets out and votes for that. But there is
An enrichment position?
the enrichment position. Thank you. I didn't vote for that. And I don't plan on voting for that going forward, because I feel like the district actually needs to take a moment and reflect on best practices in teaching in the classroom first. And really think about the data that they're choosing to choose the kids that are what they consider to be extenders and whatnot. From what I understand, it's a NEWA test and it's the 99th percentile. But if we are digging in deep into that data, we know that the 99th percentile has 2 ends of the spectrum, and that NEWA is not a grade level test. You guys have Ames Web, which is, so it tells you if they're meeting grade level standards, but that's not given to every kid. It's only given to kids who are below. So you are, and when you take a NEWA test, like you get a question, and then if you do good, it bumps you up and it bumps you up. So you could have a good clicker that bumps, but they're missing this. And then you're not giving them the Ames Web to make sure that they're hitting grade level standard because they look like they're up here. And then further down the line, when you get to LMS, you see those grades start trickling down and that data dropping like you're seeing, because you thought that they were here and you didn't shore up this part. So until that conversation happens in Litchfield, I wouldn't be voting for that. I hope that's not on the ballot again. I hope it's the problem isn't another person. The problem is really getting teachers to understand the best practice, using our data effectively, and getting that to work. And then when the board or the team proposes a person that can say, we have this many kids who would benefit from this person because of this, this, and this, that would be a much more cohesive thing that I think I would vote for. So
Can I ask you a question?
Mhm.
Do you use NEWA or do you use STAR testing?
NEWA and STAR, there's really no difference.
Do you have enrichment at your school?
We
Or do you
we-
differentiate?
We
instruction?
differentiate in a very different way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
Yeah. But we have different data points to go by. We don't just use one. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks for staying.
Anyone else for community forum? No? All right. We have a set of minutes from September 18, 2019 for approval.
Make a motion to approve September 18th draft minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain. Next, we have 2 job descriptions and an organizational chart. Who's going to take us through that?
I'll walk you right through it. So the board at the last meeting received a resignation from Craig Reynolds. And so Craig's last day in Litchfield was last Friday. And so we've appointed Dave Ross as the interim facilities director, so that we've communicated to both custodial and building maintenance staff that Dave is the one to answer to. And we're bringing forward tonight a restructured job description and organizational flow chart. So if you look at the flow chart, our vision is that the business administrator, which oversees this part of the department. So this is just sort of extracted from a bigger flow chart, right? But picture the business administrator who will then be the supervisor of the district facilities director. And then that person will supervise the district custodial supervisor and then all the lead custodians and all the custodians, followed by buildings and grounds is sort of a separate side of that, right? So
employees getting this?
They have not seen this yet.
Will they see it?
This is a draft, so yeah.
Could I ask?
Yep.
All custodians under all lead custodians, just to avoid any confusion?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
When I just saw that when I
got that, Michelle. So we want
All
to custodians reporting to the leads. Yep. Yep.
I'm sorry if you already. I just when
Oh,
I
as, as soon as I clicked on it, I had the same reaction. So yeah. So that should be the flow, right? The custodian should report to the lead, who then reports to the custodial supervisor. So that's the structure. There has been a lot of feedback that the two kind of management positions has created confusion about who directs what. And so we're trying to streamline that by having it pretty clear. So with that flow chart in mind, if you look at the two job descriptions, there's the district facility director position, and we've tweaked and adjusted what the duties are for the individual. We have received feedback from our current people that are in these roles about, does this address and make sure that everything coincides? So this is the proposed job description.
Now, can I ask one follow-up question I had when I read these?
Of course.
Since we're going through negotiations right now with the support staff, because you're having one facilities director, can we put verbiage in grounds crew and facility staff that they're employees of the district, and as needs apply, can we have somebody help mow the lawn, have somebody help work in the building if there's just a need at that time?
They're all other duties as
They're all
assigned.
under
So that's already in there.
custodial contracts.
I'm just
So it's
thinking
kind
where-
of duties as assigned and.
Where it's one pyramid now, it just seems that should extend all the way down.
We, and they already are doing that. So, in the winter time, our outside people come inside, and so yes.
I think it's in their job description already.
Correct.
They have like
So
this
it's
little
all aligned.
I just didn't see that.
Yeah.
Was wondering if it was in there.
They have a job description that kind of like outlines all of that.
So are we staffed now? Do we have a full complement of custodians and grounds?
I would, all positions are filled. Now, whether or not I believe that all the hours and do we have enough necessary staff? I would argue in certain areas, no. I think grounds is desperately understaffed.
How many people are in grounds,
Well, one
including the manager?
1.5,
That includes the manager, and then a
which
half
isn't here
guy.
anymore.
Oh, I thought you hired somebody else.
No, Craig left. He was managing and helping them. Right now, Dave is running around like a chicken with his head cut off, trying to help everybody because that's who Dave is. So,
And to address some of that, the other issue is that we had two manager positions, which were daytime positions, right? So the custodial supervisor, if you look at the job description, it says that it's approximately 80% second shift. So that we're trying to make sure that there's somebody who's overseeing the custodial staff when the custodians are here, which is second shift. So they can work closer with the leads, but still have to have some flex time to work with the day crew also. So we're thinking this is going to give us more flexibility. So for example, on Monday, we had a day custodian out at the high school. Dave filled in as the day custodian. So here he is, first day as the interim facilities director, but he had to make sure the garbage got emptied at lunch and all the other stuff that happens in a high school. So it just shows again where the stress points are on the system. Corey's done a pretty good analysis of our building needs. And I think you'll see in the budget development process that there will be some asks relative to, near as I can tell, we had streamlined and cut some positions in the past, and we just got too close to the bone. And it's time that we fatten up a little bit. And I'm using that term loosely because I just mean that we protect what we have and make sure that we can stay ahead of it and maintain it. So So you'll see that as part of the budget process. So it's sort of done in stages here. If the board approves these positions in this realignment tonight, we have 30 applicants for the district facilities director, and our intent is to begin that search immediately. And then when we have the right person in place to then search for the district custodial supervisor, because the facilities director ought to be involved in that. So we need to name that one first, get the next position, and then bring everything forward in the budget cycle for future plans. So I guess we're looking for a vote if we can have it so we can get started on
Can I
it.
make a motion for all three, or do I have to do them one at a time?
One's a flow chart.
Oh, one's a flow chart. So can I make the two together, or is that?
I think so.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so I make a motion to approve. That's what I'd say.
Yeah.
To approve the district facility director's job description, the district custodial supervisor's job description.
Well, not your job description. That's first read.
Oh, that's first read. Oh,
It's just the position itself. So we're just changing positions and names of them.
oh.
That's what you're looking for.
Second.
But shouldn't we approve the job descriptions so that you can hire somebody?
You don't have to do two reads on
No, that's
those.
job description, only on policy.
Yeah, so you can do that
We
on,
can approve it.
yeah, there's no need for first,
That was
second.
my
read.
first one, okay? So I'm making to approve the job descriptions and change in
Organizational structure.
organization structure.
Yep.
Second.
Sorry.
It's a lot of further discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstain.
I'd just like to say thank you, Mike, for doing it. I think this just
Thank you.
makes
I think it's a-
perfect
Say
sense.
thank you to the board for
Yeah.
I think it's the right thing to do, and it
This
should
is
have
the
been
right
done years ago.
Yep.
And just on an aside, last night prior to the deliberative, the boys' restroom right down from the auditorium, the floor has been painted in there. It looks spectacular. And so when you get a chance, go in.
I will look at that.
So Rob and I had a conversation about the perception of dirt on the floor. And what we learned is that years ago, the floor had been improperly waxed. And the
corners of the bathroom.
and the wax created a mess, and it simply can't be cleaned up.
Corners of the
can't.
bathrooms,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the only way to address it is to frankly redo the epoxy paint that's on there. So that one got
Oh,
done,
great.
and it is night and day. So
Really.
Which one?
it's the boys' room just past the auditorium.
On the right, yeah.
And so take a look at it. It's an expensive process. They're going to phase it in, but it's the only way to address the situation we have. But you're also talking about a building that's coming on 20 years old. So at some point, we probably ought to be repainting the floor. So now
Well, it
try to
helps
stay
with-
ahead of it and never wax it.
And it helps with just the overall feel of the school.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a bright, shiny, clean building.
the layers of wax on that thing were
Mhm.
unbelievable. And since I've been there, he's been trying to get that off.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we're making strides in that department.
So in the spirit of Paula's biggie, I'm gonna move this along.
Yeah, go for it.
So now we're on to policies. EFAA.
All right, so this is our food services meal charging policy, and this is on a first read. Hang on a second, I'm waiting for it to open.
You're just changing that two areas that are crossed out, right?
Anything in italics is new. Yes.
Italic, okay, yeah.
So basically, what we're proposing is that we have an alternative available once students hit a certain debt level. And I've talked with the food service director, Lauren, about making sure that this is done with dignity, right? I don't want, I want to make sure that we're doing front-loading communication, that we're communicating with families, that we're informing the student of the situation. And this should not be a snap judgment that's made at the checkout point, right? But basically, it's to make sure that students aren't continuing to spend into the negative off of the a la carte items when there are the reimbursable meals that are available. So you can see the policy basically says that once they hit a $15 threshold, then they'll get the choice of an alternate meal until the account is paid in full and in positive standing. And $15 was selected because you're talking about it's well over a week of notice, communication, and so forth. So it was a threshold that we felt would be high enough. It's not the minute you go into the negative. It recognizes, in fact, I think I got to write a check to my kid's school tonight because we might have dipped into the negative a little bit, but we'll get that. We'll get that evened out. So anyway, this is the draft policy.
So can I just ask something? 'Cause I've asked this before. Why do we get charged to do it automatically rather than send the check in? And I ask that because I just had to update.
You mean the school bucks stuff?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's through.
And I asked it because
the vendor.
Yeah, but they you use the school bucks right now for the insurance for Chromebooks, and they don't
You don't have
charge
to
you a fee.
pay.
So actually,
I thought that was interesting.
IT is absorbing the fee.
Yeah.
So when you pay, how much is it? $20?
$20.
So we're only realizing, say, 18 something of that because the fee is embedded into it. And part of the reason that IT felt they could do that is that last year was actually managed pretty well. And so they didn't expend as much of the insurance money. So he thought if it makes it more convenient, we'll just absorb that. The other option would have been to reduce the fee, but not to do the convenience pay. So the fee is still there.
Yeah.
But I agree with you that, I always write a check instead of doing it direct debit.
I'm just
because I
wondering
wanna
how much
pay the
more
fee.
labor that takes as far as accepting the check, and half the time the kids forget to give it anyway.
Someone writing it down, bookkeeping.
Right, then you have to deposit the check. I mean, I don't know what the fee is as far as what they charge us to make a deposit into the account. I can't imagine. It's gotta be
No,
minimal.
they're not charging the.
They charge the payer.
Charging the
Okay, how
school
much they
bus
charge?
thing.
That's why I never do it. I don't know what the charge is.
I don't know what the fee is for the.
Hold on, I'll tell you. I do it.
Yeah, it was like
just kinda
$250 and you can put $130 on. I was doing that all last year, but it's so annoying because you can't even download all your transactions from the month. So now I'm sending in checks, but I thought we talked about this last year.
did. But I just found it odd when all of a sudden the insurance came up and they didn't charge you a fee.
Right.
But we are being charged a fee. It's just how they're putting it in there. Right. All right.
I think the tricky, the kind of rub is that it's the cost of a meal.
Yeah.
Is the fee.
Right. I know it's quite a hefty fee.
Charge a processing fee,
Right.
right? When you go to get it, like one of those prepaid visas or something,
Right.
you charge an activation.
Yeah.
fee.
Yeah.
That's, that was how. it was
So the town
explained.
charges money, the town passes
Yes.
along the fees.
It's $2.49.
Yeah.
So
I'll
I'll
keep
make,
sending a check.
I'll make a motion to approve this,
But I can do
but
both
before I,
once.
officially make the motion.
Only do it second.
Okay. I guess I'll make a motion to approve policy EFAA.
I'll second for conversation.
Okay. I don't like it. I know that we do need to make sure that we rein in our debt in this area. And we need to collect on food that we serve. I need to know that the food techs are going to be trained in exactly how to do this without calling out kids.
No, I've seen it in practice at Wyndham. I visited Wyndham with Lauren. It's done very discreetly.
Okay.
It's done 1-to-1 between the lead and the child. They don't stop them in the middle of the line. They speak to them before the line, or they have the teacher
Okay.
speak to them before the line so that they understand what's going on. It's not going to be
It's not when you get there.
first and second graders aren't going to get called out in the middle of the cafeteria in front of their friends. That's
And everything would be
absolutely
just easy with the older kids. Just give them a note.
Yeah.
Someone's a senior in high school, you hand them a note. Listen, you're not eating
Yeah.
chips and stuff.
I just don't want any student to be
No.
singled out. I know there's
intention of
no
that
real.
Doesn't it say they're going to get weekly emails? Not the kids, but the parents.
Yeah, I
right?
mean, that's a week
That's what it
of
said there.
emails and phone calls and following up with families. And then if it keeps going, then,
And what we've found is letters are ineffective. They go
Mhm.
home, they get thrown out.
Mhm.
And I mean, the state law in terms of it is just really ties our hands anyway, because you can't refuse
Right.
service.
Right.
But you can limit what they
You
purchase.
can limit what they purchase, but you cannot deny service, which maybe not so much in this town, but there are towns out there that their meal at school
Mhm.
may be the only meal those kids are going to get
Right.
during the day. So you don't know what those situations are. So you absolutely cannot deny service to a child.
And Tina, you're exactly where my heart is on this, because the last thing I want is anybody to be shamed, right?
Yeah.
So I was on a school site visit last week. I was out 4 days actually, because it started on Sunday. And in that particular school, there was a rather high free and reduced population.
Mhm.
And there were 3 lunch lines, and the middle lunch line was labeled the free lunch line.
No.
I kid you not.
No,
I kid you
that's
not.
horrible.
And I thought, this is awful. I mean, part of
Yeah.
our team's feedback is you can't do this,
Oh
right?
my God, that's
Because
horrible.
automatically,
Wow.
the kids in the middle lunch line
Oh my
are on the free
God.
lunch program. So,
No, it's not free lunch.
Someone pays for it.
well,
No, I'm saying it's not that line, you get a free lunch.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I went through it because
That's all.
I was eating free
Hey, free lunch.
as a volunteer in the
Wow,
school.
But you're
But the
right.
point is
Made
that
those
that's
kids
that's the
feel good.
kind of thing that we definitely do not want to
Right,
do. And with
right.
the computer technology we have today, it is so anonymous, and there's no need for
Public shaming.
exactly. It's not going to happen as a register. Lauren's on board with that, and it's the training component to make sure.
Okay. All right then.
So we have a first and a second.
Is that going to?
All those
is
in
that going
favor?
to First read.
This is first read, right? All those in favor of policy EFAA for first read, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstain. Next is JECB.
Okay, so this is our tuition policy. I'm going to have Michelle help me a little bit to make sure that we get this right, because this is a policy that's been back and forth a few times.
Convoluted.
And had received feedback from a former board member of the community that there was just a question about what exactly the board had done. Was there an official vote that was made? And what we think we uncovered and sort of trying to figure it out was that if you look at the end of the policy, so that's page 4 of 4, it said that it was amended on September 24th of 2014, but it seemed as if it never went through a first or second reading.
Correct.
And so it just felt like that's the piece that if you were trying to match up what was in front of the board and what got approved, it really created you couldn't follow it in the minutes, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. So, so we thought we need to bring this back and make sure that the board kind of reviews where they are with the whole idea of admission and tuition. And then you see that there's some background information provided to the board also. So have I captured that correctly,
Yes,
Michelle?
that's actually-
Because it all predates me, so it's a
When
little,
the initial motion was made to eliminate the 50%
Yeah.
for employees, that was made on the tuition rate sheet and never put into the policy. And then when it was brought forward, the board had changed their mind and it was amended, but it would never move to a first or second reading.
So
And
right
that's where all
now,
the confusion was.
JECB is a first read, or
We'd like it to be a first read unless the board wants to reinstitute.
and notice two things. It's
The
not
discount.
changed. There are no strikeouts. There are no highlights, right? So
Right, we
this
just
is
have-
the policy as written. But given the concerns that were expressed this summer regarding tuition, it's a chance for the board to weigh in on whether there's an adjustment needed. And if nothing else, we first read, second read, and then the minutes are going to match up to it. So that's our
And then
goal.
this is also just making it in sync with what our other document says, right? I mean,
well,
right,
we thought we
the,
made a policy, but we didn't make it policy. So that's what we're doing.
right.
It got approved on a.
But the language is on the dollar amount for the
rate
tuition.
setting
Right.
sheet, right, but it was never translated to the policy.
I'll make a motion to accept for first read policy code JECB.
Can I second but ask a clarifying question?
Yeah, you can second for.
I'll second
Huh?
with discussions.
Yeah.
Okay. Mike, the only question I have is we talked about before, we have that 90 days verbiage in there again. Do we need to put 90 school days or is it 90 days? I know that was the question last time. Because that's half a year, that's half. a
Is that
year.
the second bullet down below?
That's page 3, towards the end of page 3 of 4.
It is the
It says the
second
superintendent
bullet.
shall have the discretion to allow students to begin.
We
They
say
plan
90
to move
days
in within
was.
90 days.
And remember we mentioned that, is that 90 school days or is that 3 months?
And then it
But
goes
that's a
on to
big-
say if they're not in residence by January 1st, which is less than probably 90 school days, but it certainly,
Should we say, just to clarify it, should we put in there like 90 consecutive
Well, it does say 90 days.
This is right from the law.
Is it right from the law?
It doesn't say school days. It says.
I just worry more about somebody questioning it.
90 days, I mean, isn't that from the law?
I'm not worried about us. I'm
Not
worried
that
about
I'm
somebody
aware of.
fighting.
Oh,
questioning
No,
something
but
for half a year.
I would assume looking at it as 90 days, it's 90
That's
days,
what I would
not,
assume,
not
yeah.
90 school days.
Right. Should
But
we,
does
do
that-
we want to
does that
clarify
protect
that
us
and
if
add in
somebody-
the word calendar days?
That'd be the only question I have. If somebody fought it saying that's half a year,
Right.
could they?
I mean, if you want to add that word, 90 calendar days.
That's my only question to you. If you're,
Sure.
Yeah, calendar days. I think that's fair because so we had two situations this year. One was a family that asked to start under this provision, but they've got a purchase and sales and they're going to be moved in within, I think they're already here, to be honest. So, so that moved very quickly. And then another family that had a purchase and sales that fell through and is now aware of the January 1st clock because that's what the policy says. So they are trying to figure that out. But I think the 90 calendar days will help us, especially with the way we dealt with the tuition on it.
Absolutely.
So we have a first and a second with the addition of one word to the policy. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain.
All right, so next up is the dress code. And so what the board is being provided with is policy JICA, which is the student dress code policy in its current written form. And you also have a couple of other documents. So this summer, we had taken a look at the Roanoke County Public Schools dress code policy. I will tell you that I brought that to our administrative team, and there was a lot of feedback that they loved the idea of the simplicity of this, and they really like the picture aspect of it because it just provides a lot of clarity to families.
You look like this, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's no further conversation, no specifics. It's less uncomfortable, I would think.
I like too that it's gender, it's, you know, non-gender specific and it's suitable for K to 12 plus staff.
Plus staff, did you say?
Yeah, so one thing that I'm hoping to have come out of this is that we engage in a dialogue, and then we come up with both staff and student dress codes, so it's really clear.
Yeah, and I
what the
think in
expectation
Roanoke, their policy does say it includes all staff members. Because it's,
Yep, first paragraph.
yeah,
And-
it's a reasonable,
Can I suggest that we possibly form like a small task force to sit down and discuss, but also like not people all of the same mind. So a little bit of flexibility as far as thought process of dress code. I'm not touching this because I don't see a problem with dress code. I think there are some things that should be brought to someone's attention. I'm not saying a lot of things, but there are some. In talking to two of the principals, they don't have a concern whatsoever with dress code because they do address a situation as a situation, and they're very far and few between. I think we're probably mainly talking to high school, where you're starting to get young men and young ladies that probably push the envelope a little bit much. But I think you can simplify it too by just specifying body parts need to be covered and just cover them.
And having a visual.
well, that's
Yeah.
that's what that policy does.
And
And my,
the thing is, I mean, when you look at the Roanoke one, it's like it's not the style. I mean, as simple as that. It's not today's style. That's all I'm gonna say.
what do you mean?
I showed this to my daughter. She laughed. She goes, really? I'm not dressing like that.
You don't have to wear that outfit. It just
It shows the boundaries.
It actually gives a little more leeway as far as the width of the straps and the length of the shorts.
Yeah.
Because
And
what about a
it's a
girl
little
with
more
long
clarity.
legs? Not that Tara and I,
Right.
or any of us would know, these girls have long legs, and 3 inches to them would be halfway down my thigh.
Right, right.
So it kind of, I like that
I think it's
part of
easier
it.
to find clothes for my daughter that to fit this dress code. The other thing too is I know at it's our current dress code is not uniformly enforced, and I think in some cases students are called out for dress code unnecessarily.
So I asked the question
And-
then, is the dress code that we have in place now
Mhm.
sufficient? But it's just not being addressed?
I think there are a couple ways to look at it. I like you said, I don't think I agree with most people. I feel parts of our current dress code are too restrictive and too complicated and only
too graphic.
appeal too graphic. Lingerie should not be mentioned in our dress code. And I just feel like if we can streamline it and simplify it and make it more universal, I think it kind of just.
There were some parts, slippers. I see kids wearing moccasin slippers. I don't even know why that's in there. Is it for safety, slip, trip, and fall?
It says no pajamas either, but
Yeah. And that-
go by the
yeah.
high school anytime you want to. I mean, those pajama
Yeah,
pants, we're all wearing them.
Mhm.
I mean, is that really a distraction? Is that really a problem, wearing pajama pants?
But then why do we have a policy that doesn't
That's what I'm
reflect
saying.
what we enforce?
And that's why
what
I think
do
we
in
should
our
have like a
schools?
small task force, possibly get together with,
Parents, staff.
And-
Yeah, I agree.
you know, get
Got
the,
it.
either the assistant
do
principals or the
it.
principals.
The admin team
You know, I'm
supports,
thinking about getting someone like the opposite spectrum.
the admin team supports that approach, and they really think that with one meeting, we could
Yeah,
reach
it's-
consensus and have something back before the
It's
board.
something they could enforce.
You can take a look at their current dress codes, and that's just it. It has to be enforceable.
Mhm.
It's like you said. I mean, right now, I think the blinders go on. I've seen it at the high school the last couple of years. It's. I remember like 3 years ago, whatever, when we had that policy conversation, or 4 years
About
ago.
leggings?
I
Oh,
was
yeah.
there. I was in the middle of it.
Brian, I take the able off the enforce.
What's that?
I take the able enforceable. It has to be enforced
Correct.
if it's going to be.
Right. You can put any.
Right.
You can put any dress code in there you want to,
If
but
you don't
no one's
enforce it
doing anything.
regularly, it doesn't.
Right. But I think it's hard to enforce our current dress code because it's so restrictive and so, it requires measuring of hemlines and straps and it just.
And is it different for each school at this point in time? Well, it was hard understanding the
No, I
history
think-
of this. It sounded like there's one district one that is more generic, but then it almost sounded like there was one at the high school in the student handbook there.
I think they're all taken from our
Handbook,
policy.
they wanted to make, in the student handbook, I know it was the elementary school and the high school wanted to add to the policy. And I said, you can't add to the policy without going to the board. So my advice to them was, you could say, in addition to the above policy, if you have any.
And that's why I think that we get all three schools together
One is
with a small
better.
task force. So I'll make a motion to,
You voluntolding me, aren't you?
volunteer Tina to be on the task force to represent the school board.
I'll second.
Okay.
If you're okay with it.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll do it.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I
Opposed,
abstain.
abstain. It's all yours.
All right, thanks. So, Mike, do you want me to reach out to admins and set up a meeting?
Yes,
Or
let's figure out the
chat.
best way. I'm envisioning, I'd like to involve a couple of students.
Yes, parents.
We have students and parents also, so, but
Okay.
yeah, let's get that done.
I'd say a couple, I would actually go with like
Had
2
one
female
session
students and
already.
2 male students.
From LMS and CHS.
Yeah.
If you're out to us.
Two of each.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hey, can I ask, because I missed the school board, it's not really input. I had a game tomorrow, so I'm going to be anywhere from 15 minutes to a half hour late to the budget meeting. Is that okay? It's for the town budget. We're not voting or anything tomorrow.
Is it a regular meeting?
No, it's the town budget presentation.
They
The
don't
first
vote
one.
the same
They don't vote.
Oh, no, but it's a regular meeting now. Regular budget committee meeting.
So I'll be about anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes late, probably. Is that okay?
Can someone cover for Rob by that
I'm
time?
just saying, I don't know if I really need somebody because I have the budget. I can look at it myself and we don't vote till the next.
Do they go first?
Who's presenting?
The town.
Oh.
It's
Or
the
does the
town.
town go first before you? Before your school input?
No. This is the town budget presentations tomorrow.
Oh, you mean, he means school report. Yeah, that's after.
That's
the town
after
budget.
everything.
Just an asking.
So I'll be there for that. I didn't even see that
Someone
on
go
the
for the first half hour?
If
Or
you-
do you want
Can
me to
you?
go? Yeah.
If I can go, I'll let you know. I'm not certain if I can, but if I can, I will. I'll just come
It's at
across. the street.
7:00.
I might,
It's a half.
it could be 10 minutes,
I'll
I
keep
could
you
be a
seat
half
warm.
hour. So
I'll let you know if I can make it. All right. Any questions on the manifest? No? All right. Bring us back to public input for community forum. All right.
Jeannie Nankle, 43 Tanager Way. I fully have a parent hat on right now. I'm glad that the dress code policy is being looked at and that there'll be a task force that will get input from multiple different parties. And I just want to stress that it be handled very delicately with a focus on educating our students to be prepared for the real world, not a focus on making kids, and it has been girls mostly, more self-conscious at a very delicate time in their development. We should not be bringing their attention to comparing each other when we see girls saying, my friend got dress coded in that outfit. Would I be able to wear the same outfit? Now they're comparing body types, and we shouldn't be bringing their attention to comparing body types. We should bring their attention to dressing appropriately for the context to help put yourself in a position of success in the world. And that's our role as educators. I feel pretty strongly about them still having the opportunities to express their individuality and not to hamper that. I'm glad to see that in the policy from wherever that you were just looking at, the one you're considering adopting parts of, that it had a part about special subjects and athletic events might have different requirements. I was very upset about the cross-country meet where some girls were dress coded in front of their peers because, from my understanding, I wasn't there when it actually happened. I was at the meet, but because the sports bra they were wearing was a style that came up around the neck rather than stayed under the wide strap tank tops they had on, when other kids could wear the exact same tank top without a bra at all because they're still a little girl and they don't need one yet, and they'd be fine. And then these girls that are running, these athletic girls who are running and have shorts that they're told are too short, could then go play a volleyball game and be required to wear even shorter shorts. It just breeds bringing attention to their different body types. And I have a daughter that suddenly got legs. She was like Ariel, and all of a sudden she got legs, but she's still a little girl body that are skinny, long legs. And maybe she should have been dress coded in some of her shorts because all of a sudden she had long legs and we hadn't gone to get new shorts. And she is now aware that her peers that are more young women bodies aren't able to wear the shorts that she's been allowed to wear. I'm not saying I want her dress coded, but it's just bringing her awareness is something that I would rather she wasn't aware of yet. I don't want her looking at her friends and comparing body types. And I just want this task force and the board in developing the new policy to stay focused on the education piece that they need to be successful adults in the world and really handle it delicately. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for your input. That'll bring us to non-public section, RSA 91-A:311. The dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee or the disciplining of such employee or the investigation of any charges against them unless the employee affected, one, has the right to a meeting, and two, requests that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. B, the hiring of any person as a public employee. C, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the body or agency itself, unless such person requests an open meeting. Yes.
Yes.
We're in non-public.